We are changing the world with 3 questions at a time. It's MJ Knight here with Ask the Knight. And let's get started with this week's first question from Sean Retro. What story arc would you do for Fleetway Sonic the Comic, Archie Sonic the Hedgehog, and IDW Sonic the Hedgehog? Well, thankfully the Fleetway Sonic the Comic is still around, but as an online format. Archie Sonic the Hedgehog is kind of unofficially still around with the online Archie Sonic the Hedgehog comic, but again, like Fleetway, it's being continued by fans, and more power to you. I'd like to see more people do that, because I've seen portions of the reboot of the Archie's comic. People are not fans. No. And also, making Sally a robot. Don't do it. And IDW. I'm presuming what story arc he's referring to would be anything pertaining to the games. That's a good question. Sonic Forces, in a way, you could argue, is kind of elements of Archie's and Satam already done in game format, but minus Sally. Don't do that. They've done the Sonic Unleashed format. I suppose for all 3 of them, I'd like to see them try their hand at seeing what Sonic Generations would look like in a comic book format, but be able to tell it in a much less condensed story pattern, whereby, and here's the thing, I love Generations to pieces, but the biggest problem with that game, too short, way too short. So I'd like to see them try their hand at doing the Generations format. No to Lost World, because Sonic and the Lost World, that was awful from what I remember seeing. And the cutscenes, don't even get me started. But yeah, Generations would be a nice one to go to, and you know, maybe just go for an original story arc, kind of like what IDW's doing. But again, I'd like to see them take a stab at that particular one. Question 2 comes from Kryptonite Cow, so you already know this is going to be an elongated question. I'm just telling it like it is, dude. I love the questions you bring in, but gosh dang it, dude, condense it. Even though this is just hypothetical fun, what if scenario, and giving DC Comics history of buying characters from other companies like Fawcett, Quality, Charlton, Milestone, and Wildstorm, etc. If DC Comics ever bought all of the Sonic characters, including characters from Satam, Archie, IDW, etc., regardless of legal issues might come with it, etc., how would you react, and how do you think it could be incorporated to the DC universe? Note, personally, the way I do is through a crisis story called Chaos Crisis, very good, or something like that, and the main villains of that story would be the Anti-Monitor from Crisis on Infinite Earths, and Infinite from Sonic Forces. Oh no, do not give Infinite the time of day. That has got to be like the weakest Sonic antagonist in ever. I'm gonna be flat out honest. How would I react? I'd be over the moon. As I've stated before, with Sonic being the equivalent of the Flash, Shadow is basically the equivalent of Batman, just minus the money and the gadgets. Knuckles, I suppose you could, interpret him as the Sonic version of Superman, but minus the flight. As I've stated quite a few times, Sally is the equivalent of Wonder Woman, although imagining Sally with the lasso of truth making and making Sonic answer questions like, where do you keep all the chocolates? Where do you keep all the mint hot chocolates? Where do you keep the chili dogs? And more importantly, what are you doing on days when we're supposed to be meeting up? And, well, you all saw what Chris Pine had to go through in the Wonder Woman movie. The lasso of truth is painful. So, that would be interesting. Like I say, I think it would be awesome. And I like the play on words with Chaos Crisis. I think that's absolutely awesome. Although, and here's the thing I'd like to see done with, superhero team-ups, or just team-ups in general. Can we not have it where both teams of protagonists are out to get each other? Can we not just have protagonists that just want to get along? I mean, am I one of those people that... I can't be the only one who's getting sick of, Superman shows up, Batman shows up, they go fight each other because I don't want you on my turf. It's like, you're here for a reason, let me help you so you can get on with your merry way. Why is it got to be, up in everybody's face all the time? Why can't we all just get along, Can't be the only one thinking that, but... yeah, to answer your question, I would be stoked. And from Aaron Izzard, how you doing? Okay, here's a question for your next Ask the Night. How would you do a Knight Rider animated series? Me personally, I would go with a pseudo-anime style like Aeon Flux animated shorts. Okay, I'm just gonna state this for posterity. A Knight Rider animated series, an official one. Let's just say Universal Animation Studios decided to finally pull the trigger and actually give us a Knight Rider animated series. I think pseudo-anime is the way to go, because I think that not only complements the style of the show, but considering the 80s was, one of the aspects of the 80s was bright, flashy neon lights, and Knight Rider had, flashy neon lights, not just from Kit. But in general, that would be a nice way to incorporate it. And I think also, personally, have the show still set in the 80s. You could have a Knight Rider series set in modern times where you can update the technology and what have you, but still have the basic DNA of the show intact, kind of like what they've done with Thunderbirds on Go. But Thunderbirds has always been set in the future, so that has always been way ahead of its time. And even when you look at the original 1965 Supermarination series, it still holds up incredibly well. I think even some kids today will look at the original series and think, that's actually not bad. Considering when that show got its first major rerun in the early 90s, and kids like me back then absolutely loved the sight of it from the word go, like, oh, hey, this is kind of cool. It just shows that the show had a lot of longevity and a lot of shelf life to it. In a similar vein, whenever Satam gets replayed, people eat it up because it's a great show. Knight Rider has that same longevity as an iconic TV series, and I think an animation series would do the brand some justice. And this is just me saying this, as is. I would get voice actors that not necessarily sounded distinctively like the original actors, but get ones that have the essence and the spirit of the characters. So you get somebody that would sound like a young Michael Knight, but they could then make it their own thing. And this is a little something that people in TV, Hollywood, and video games need to understand. Not everything needs to be about singularity. Everything can have their own look. their own voice, their own appeal, their own essence, if you will. And the fact that, you know, the MCU in particular wants to make everything the same in each form of media that they do. It's like, guys, you can have a distinctive sense of separation whereby Peter Parker in the comics doesn't have to look like Tom Holland, or Captain America in, you know, Avengers Assemble doesn't have to look like Chris Evans. And distinctly, I mean, I don't know whether DC do this or not, but, you know, you could have it whereby Bruce Wayne in the comics or a TV series, in an animated series, doesn't have to look like Ben Affleck. I'm just saying, it's nice to have something whereby it has its own look, it has its own appeal. And here's a thing free of charge, MCU and Disney: variety is the spice of life. If you mix it up a little bit, where you know, each of your different properties has its own look, its own appeal, and its own identity, you can draw in different fans that can like these for different reasons, but like it equally. Not everything has to be all the same, because people get tired of that. I mean, just look at your comic book sales. And from what I understand, you're licensing some of your characters out to IDW. That has to hurt. But yeah, I'd love to see a Knight Rider animated series. I think for like a young Michael Knight, you know, try to get Cam Clark for it. As to whom you get to voice Kit, I'd like to do it personally, but I feel like with that type of character, you need the right guy for the right job, and I'm not the guy. That's just me telling it like it is. I mean, the only character I can play is MJ Knight. That's me. But yeah, to answer your question, would love to see it done. It's overdue, and it needs to happen. Those have been your 3 questions for this week. You know how this works by now. And I'll see you next week. Ask again.